This is the Cats Roundtable with John Catsimatidis.
Everywhere around the world, they come to America. Every time that flag's unfurled, they come to America.
Good morning, New York. This is the Cats Roundtable. John Catsimatidis here Sunday morning. Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all. One great show for you today. Suzanne Miller, what's going on with real estate? Governor David Paterson, Jack Schlossberg is running for Congress. John Terrett, what's going on in the markets? Steve Phillip, what's going on with the biggest 300 companies in New York? Steve Cates, Dr. Sky, Claudia Tenney, and going to New Jersey, State Senator Scallon. And let's start off with the real estate report with Mike Stoller.
Good morning. This is Mike Stoller for the Stoller Real Estate Report. Sales are booming throughout the city of New York and the multifamily world. What's the cause of this? Who's providing financing? Who's selling? All this information is available through my friend Joe Kosum, who is my guest today, the founding member of New York Multifamily Group, and also the managing director at Marcus & Millichap.
Thank you, Michael, for having me again. It's great to see you. It's always a pleasure to be here.
What is it, your 24th year?
My 23rd year.
23rd year.
In investment sales at Marcus, selling apartment buildings all throughout New York City. I've been in the trenches in New York City for 23 years, and I've sold through crashes, pandemics, and the most punishing regulatory environment this industry has ever seen. And I'm still here because New York real estate rewards people who understand it, and I'm fortunate to be here and know you for 22 years as well. I work with owners across all 5 boroughs, helping them navigate the market that is simultaneously the most complicated, the most resilient in the country. And right now, despite everything you're hearing about regulation and politics, this market is moving.
Why do you attribute this?
Look, you walk around New York City, especially right now, spring, and as we go into summer, things feel better. Energy's there. Office is back. People want to live here. People want to live near their office, and feeling stronger about all the fundamentals, especially apartment rents. I mean, we saw in the first quarter rents hit median rent hit $5,000, which is significantly up. And we continue to see records and year-over-year growth in Brooklyn markets, just like Williamsburg and Greenpoint, and then obviously all the submarkets in Soho and the West Village that continue to rise rents and attract a lot more capital.
What happened in the Bronx? The Bronx sales were down for the quarter.
The Bronx is down mainly because of the rent-stabilized component. And, we saw in the peak of the market, building sales for, Bronx, Uptown, anywhere from 13 to 15 times the rent. And that's not there anymore. There's distressed opportunities, and they're all stabilized buildings. There's no pathway to growth, mainly because of the 2019 rent laws that really had a big destruction on our industry. But really, what I'm seeing and feeling and hearing, their cap rates, 8 to 10 caps in northern Manhattan and the Bronx and some parts of Brooklyn that we're selling, it's the highest in the country.
But you were once called Joey 1 cap.
Yes. And, maybe I'm more like Joey 4.5 cap now downtown for value add or core multifamily free market. Because free market's a totally different category where we're seeing the most volume and the most activity on the free market because of what's happening with the rents. But I just want to say something because nobody rang a bell at 15 times the rent roll telling you to sell. And nobody's going to ring a bell at 5 times telling you to buy for these rent-stabilized buildings. But we're seeing, you can't time the market perfectly. The owners who are waiting for perfect clarity before they transact on these rent-stabilized buildings are going to look back at this moment in time the same way people look back at buying Manhattan real estate in 94. And the distress is priced in. The politics are priced in. What isn't priced in yet is the recovery. And I think, when are you going
to price in the recovery?
We're going to price in the recovery because, it's because of what's happening where you can finance these buildings. And there's a real spread between interest rates and cap rates on these uptown buildings. The problem is that a lot of these buildings require a lot of capital and you don't see the growth. But if you're already buying them at these stabilized buildings at 8 to 10 caps at very low bases, sub $100 a foot, I think there is patient capital out there, and we're seeing it and seeing a lot of buyers jump in. A lot of buyers for that product that left the state, left the city, and went out of state are coming back because they're priced out of those submarkets, and that was oversupply. And there's a real undersupply problem in New York City.
So where do you see the possible growth for an individual?
The possible growth is on the free market side in terms of.
But how much free market side? Everybody wants free market side. So what are they getting?
Well, that's a good question because everyone thinks their buildings are free market, and diligence has been a big issue in terms of proving out the deregulation.
Right. You mentioned that to me the other day. So let's talk about the diligence for the deregulation.
So that's the first question on any building that I have that's substantially free market is how's the paperwork? And every owner is going to tell us that the paperwork is great. It's then getting to the bottom of it, and where we come in as a team, I have a sizable team that comes in and helps navigate around that process. And we've been able to successfully sell, 40 buildings this year already. And we're on track to do north of 100 buildings this year. And we're selling anything from $4 million to $200 million assets. And, from the smallest building that has the problems to the biggest building, it's just being able to substantiate the deregulation paperwork to get somebody comfortable to buy it. And institutions won't tolerate it. Certain buyers will more than others. And, we've been successful at executing those transactions.
What's happening with regard to conversion of office buildings to residential?
It's happening. Our financing group, Max Herzog, and his team have been tremendously involved in a lot of financing of these transactions, from the office to condo conversion, or just straight resi rental conversion. We did the Pfizer refi a couple of months back, acquisition financing on that. And not every building works for it, right? That's, clear. But the ones that do, it's happening, and you're seeing a lot more of that come to market and execute. I'm selling another building in the West Village that's going to stay office, not convert, even though it's in the West Village. That's a boutique office opportunity.
So it sounds, in summary, that happy times are here again. Any other thoughts?
I think that's clear, is that the market feels better. There's a lot more momentum for multifamily, specifically in the free market space. The story's never been better. And if you're holding stabilized, you need to have an honest conversation about what the market will actually pay today and where you're going with it. But my job after 22 years is still the same: bring buyers and sellers together at the price that makes sense for both sides. And right now, there's more opportunity to do that at any point that I've seen since 2018.
So as you celebrate your 22nd or 23rd, I'm not sure.
I'm
very happy that I've known you, and I'm happy to see that business is much better than it has been.
Likewise. Yeah.
Thanks
great
again
to see you,
for
Michael.
being here.
Thank you.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us this morning is Suzanne Miller, and she's the founder and president of Empire State Properties. Suzanne Miller, that new tax, the pied-à-terre tax, can you explain it on what happens?
Well, the city's trying to raise $500 million, and they're trying to do it on second home people that they're called pied-à-terre buyers. So they own these properties, they don't live in them full time, and it's going to happen in two phases. Starting July 1, this July, is going to be a tax between, if you own a property that's worth $1 to $3 million, you'll be taxed an additional 4% of your already tax. Whatever your current real estate taxes is, it'll be an additional 4%. For homes $3 to $5 million, it'll be 5.25%. And on homes $5 million or up, it'll be done by it'll be 6.25%. So if you take a $5 million apartment, just doing the math, because remember the first $1 million is not taxable, you'd be paying an additional $260,000 annually. Now you want to ask, how do you come up with this tax? Like, who gets taxed, right? It's based on what your current assessed value is. So they will look at your building and say, okay, we think that your rent should be X, and that's how we're going to tax you. So whatever your current tax bill is what they're going to value, is what they're going to tax you on. That's only first phase. Now, in 2028 and 2029, there'll be the second phase. And then they're going to reassess what you actually paid for the apartment. They'll go by the comps in the building, the comps in the neighborhood. So can you imagine if you own your apartment for 40 years and you're 80 years old, and all of a sudden they're going to reassess your neighbor, and your tax can go up by who knows how much?
And what happens after the 2 years?
After the 2 years, it gets reassessed on the actual sales price. So they'll go into your building, and they'll say, John's apartment at this building, your neighbors paid $10 million. You've only paid $1 million in taxes, the value. So it'll be taxed on what you actually paid for the apartment. It doesn't matter when you bought it. It's outrageous. Now
I mean, Rebney, who used to do their job, what did I say?
This went into law. It was a proposal actually passed. And the biggest issue, John, which has made the papers this week, are the co-ops. Remember, a co-op is taxed as a single building entity, as opposed to a condo where you have an individual lot number. Do you understand? So if you're a co-op, the whole building gets taxed. So let's say you have a co-op of 5 apartments, and one unit owner doesn't pay say they're living in Mexico or Iran, wherever they are. Then the whole building has to pay that tax, and then it's up to the board to collect it, or the whole building will be levied. This is going to impact the entire building. Imagine if you're an out-of-towner and your one owner is not paying the tax. Now your whole building is being levied. You won't be able to get financing. The legal fees are going to be outrageous, and I think it's going to be a reset, particularly for the co-op market.
Anything else you want to say to all our listeners?
Well, New York continues to have the highest rent anywhere. I just read a report this morning that if you're looking for a starter apartment anywhere in the United States, New York is still the highest. An average studio is starting at $3,400 a month. That's more than any mortgage payment in other cities. So New York is still doing well, but I think this co-op and this pied-à-terre tax is going to make wealthy people feel unwelcome, and it's going to be a reset for the market, and it's very concerning.
Suzanne Miller, thank you very much, and we look for you in the near future for any updates, and thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. With us today is Governor David Paterson. Governor Paterson, what do you feel like today's discussion should be?
Well, John, happy Father's Day to you. I just wanted to say that to you and just wish all the listeners happy Father's Day. But it's not really a happy time right here in this country when you see that we spent all this time setting up this agreement that was supposed to, make everybody go away happy. And we don't get 24 hours into the agreement when Iran says that the United States broke the details of some agreement and they weren't going to open the Straits of Hormuz. Then Friday morning they come back and they say, yes, they're going to open it up in a little while. The whole thing is a mess. And I'll tell you, I never thought as a Democrat, as a kind of peacenik in most situations, as somebody who really encourages discussion and not violence. But I just have this feeling that the only way there's going to be any kind of resolution is if the next time they play one of these games, we do what the president keeps saying he wants to do. But and listen, when you're the president, you've got all responsibilities on you. So I don't want to be second guessing, but I think he might really consider some of the statements he's made in the past and actually turn them into action now.
At the end of the day, it's the president's call.
Yeah. So we have to respect that. But we can already see how any little thing, if somebody left a pen in the office while they were negotiating, anything that Iran and some of its, subsidiary terrorist groups that help Iran try to act like they're the ones who are trying to bring peace, and nothing could be further from the truth.
Somebody said to me the other day that Iran has never held up to a treaty ever in its life. So why should they begin now? And I just didn't have an answer for them.
No, I mean, this goes back to the trouble there in 1979, and we're still having problems with them. And they're almost first thing we have to understand is their culture and even their sense of spirituality is totally different than ours. And because of it, they tend to take more chances than, let's say, a lot of other countries, and even with us. We were really trying to negotiate, step back when they got a little upset, and come back with a new offer. But there must have been 10 or 15 new offers in the last 60 days with very little concession from the other side. So right now, whatever we did or they accused us of doing, I would not mind if in the next few months we recognize finally that we just can't do business with them. We just can't do it.
Governor, all we can do is take it day by day and week by week and hope a little bit of common sense prevails.
Absolutely. Honorable intentions. Liberal or conservative, I think everyone has agreed that we've addressed it that way so far, but it might just have run out of steam.
Agreed. Governor David Paterson, happy Father's Day. Enjoy the day with all your family, and we'll catch up again soon.
Same to you, John.
The Cats Roundtable.
Jack Schlossberg is coming into our studio right now. This is Jack Schlossberg. He is running for Congress. Jack, you're in a big primary on Tuesday. Tell us which district it is and what part geographically of the city.
District 12, New York 12, which runs from 96th Street to 14th Street, all avenues east and west of Manhattan.
Wow. Okay. So that's a big, that's a lot of different, that's like 6 different worlds. I mean, for
God,
those of you who are listening, not from New York City and not from Manhattan, that might sound, it's 82 blocks of the same city. But I mean, that's like 35 different nationalities represented in
every
that
kind
area.
of person and the best kind of people in the whole world. This district it is home to the United Nations, to the Empire State Building, Central Park. The whole world starts counting time every year from New York 12 in Times Square. And so we really need leadership that can punch above its weight and get things done in Congress, because the Democratic Party needs a lot of help.
Have you studied about all the things that your grandfather was stood for and everything?
Yeah, I have. And it all started, my studies of him started when a teacher in high school asked me a question on JFK's diplomatic policy in Laos. And I didn't know the answer. And I went home and started reading, a bunch of books about him and watching his speeches. But I've studied him very closely and worked closely on the Kennedy Library. And, his legacy is something that he's remembered as an icon now, but people forget he sent a man to the moon, drafted the Civil Rights Act, stared down Khrushchev and did not blink. He was a war hero and the youngest person ever elected president and the first Catholic.
Wow.
Jack Schlossberg joining us right now. Of course, his most famous quote is, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." And I'm sympathetic as I ask this question to you, because especially when you run for Congress, it's kind of hard to follow that paradigm, right? I mean, today's politicians, even for much higher office, it seems like it's handout city. And how do you run for an office at a local level, even though it's for Congress, and not ignore what your grandfather said? I mean, how do you do it? Because it's all about, when am I going to get this? When am I going to get my free that? This is something that I think plagues anyone running for office.
Totally. People forget JFK was the ultimate outsider when he started and when he ran for president. And people might laugh hearing this coming from me because I'm, his grandson. But I'm the outsider in this race too. And the institutions here in New York 12 and New York City, they don't want to change. They have no new answers. They just tell people what they want to hear. I'm running against someone, Michael Asher, whose final closing argument to everybody was, I've got a plan so that everyone is guaranteed a job and a house. No one asks any follow-up questions. I think we got to start running our government more efficiently, more effectively, and come together, because there's no reason we need to be so divided. It wasn't always this way. A huge reason: money in politics. This is something that I've been known for in the campaign. They call me No PAC Jack. I don't have a super PAC. And this race has been flooded with $30 million of outside spending, which, as a New Yorker, offends me. And as an American and a Democrat, I think we can do better than this.
$30 million just for one congressional race?
Can you believe that? I guess a lot of people want to buy real estate.
How many candidates are running in this district?
Only about 150,000. It's a split field. There's, I would say, 3 or 4 main contenders. Myself, Alex Borez, Michael Lasher, and George Conway.
Jack Schlossberg, we've been talking for these last 4 hours about a radical socialist takeover of the Democratic Party. And if they were just being socialists all the time and focusing on the economic aspect of it, to me that would be more understandable. But it seems like they call themselves socialists, but they're really all I ever hear from them is anti-Israel rhetoric, anti-Semitic rhetoric. Since when did those two things become so easily conflated?
I'm very worried, about the upcoming fracturing of the Democratic Party, being dragged into the mud by what I consider to be, there are a lot of people who hear certain things from these candidates, socialist candidates, that they agree with, that we probably all agree with, that sound great. And then there are the other talking points that they lean into to pander to an audience that, you're right, is defined by their stance against Israel. Not what they're for, but against the state of Israel's existence in general. And I'm someone, I'm right in the sweet spot on the U.S.-Israel question in this race. I've made everybody mad at me. I'm very proud of that. I think we need to talk with nuance about this stuff and not lean into tropes. And the Democratic Party, a lot of this stuff seems like it's organic, crowdsourced. And I've seen in this campaign myself that a lot of this stuff is driven by rhetoric online. And a lot of that rhetoric online is actually paid for in terms of paid for social media content creation and bots. If you look at any post that I've made in the last 2 months, most of it is filled with anti-Israel and a lot of anti-Semitic comments from what are clearly fake accounts paid for by one of the opponents. So, look, I think this is a serious question. I don't want to cede the issue of the U.S.-Israel's relationship to the right either. And because we should be able to come together on this, used to be bipartisan. Doesn't mean we can't criticize Israel's government, but we've got to get serious here because there's a lot of challenges facing our world, and we live in an increasingly hostile world with more and more conflict happening every day. We got to have a real strategy here, and the Democratic Party should not lose its credibility by embracing hate.
Listen, a lot of people ask people who are running for office, what's the first thing you're going to do, and what do you think the most important thing is? I'm going to ask a nuanced type of question. What's the first thing that you think you can do, that you think you actually can do, that will make an impact? That's a better question.
Deduct your rent from your taxes. I'm the only candidate who's ever put forward this proposal. I think renters should be treated the same as those who borrow against their homes, who can deduct their mortgage interest payment. We talk about housing nonstop in New York City. We talk about building new housing. Great. At the fastest that can go, a couple of years, even if projects are greenlit today to build those developments. What can we do right now for New Yorkers who are struggling with high rents that have never been higher in Manhattan? Make them tax deductible. You can fit that in a must-pass bill. And I don't think the president or the Republican Party is going to put up a huge fight if it's funding the government or passing Schlossberg's renter deduction. I think there's a lot of people who rent around the country in districts red and blue, and I think it's a kind of common sense policy that we should have that can make a real difference to people immediately.
We're talking to Jack Schlossberg, who's running for Congress, the big Democrat primary on this Tuesday, June 23rd. Jack, you went to collegiate, you went to Yale, you went to Harvard. I hope they spent some time teaching you about the law of supply and demand.
Yeah.
If there's something that people want, there's only two ways to get the prices down. Either you can try to reduce demand. Good luck trying to find people who don't want to live in an apartment. We want to live. Or you can increase supply. And we've heard about, well, we need more lower income housing. I'm going to throw you a meatball here, and maybe you'll hit it out of the park. If you want more low income housing, build more high income housing, because that will bring in more of the developers because there's more of an immediate benefit to them. And then what is now mid-level housing will end up becoming cheaper housing. I mean, what can we do to get the supply up in this city? More building.
There's a lot we can do. We can tie federal incentives for financing projects to those cities which reduce red tape. We can also help facilitate with state and local officials development projects here in the city. And we can also, I'm a candidate who I don't want to give up. There's so much room and opportunity to partner with private developers, but there's also room to invest in public housing here in New York City. And the federal government can do that. NYCHA has been terribly run. It's got a huge deficit. A lot of those buildings are falling into disrepair. And we owe it to those people who are living there that they can live in safe, dignified conditions, and that we don't convert the last remaining public housing units to non-public housing. So I think there's room for both. And, President Trump has taught me, if not anything, one thing, that anything's possible, and that you got to make a stand if you really believe in something and push the envelope. And that's something I want to do on housing.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. We talked to her on Thursday, but we have so much to talk about. Claudia Tenney, Ways and Means Committee and the Intelligence Committee. Tell us about what you want to talk about on Sunday morning.
Well, good morning, John. It's so great to be on, and it's fun to be on just in a few days later. But I have to tell you, one of the big things, and it's like a huge issue with a lot of my constituents, is this whole issue of fraud, abuse, and waste. And this past week, we finally passed a bill that had to deal with the fraud in student loan payments. And it was called the No Aid for Ghost Students Act, and it's sponsored by my friend Burgess Owens, wonderful congressman from Utah, Super Bowl winner, played for the Raiders. Unfortunately, he's not going to be running again, mostly because of redistricting. We're going to lose a wonderful member of the House, but he's been a terrific member, and he's on the Education Committee. And that's just one point. It's between student aid, Medicare, Medicaid. The fraud is just incredible. And you and I know as New Yorkers, part of the problem that creates all this fraud, John, is that the federal government matches programs that are in the state. And what the state does, instead of that money being directed into the programs that it was slated for and how we appropriate it, the state kind of, if they don't need the money, they don't go back and tell the federal government, we don't need this extra matching funds. They find a way to fill gaps in other programs that don't really match the mission of where the federal funding is going, which is why you've seen this enormous growth in New York's budget, $269 billion. When I left the state assembly, when I started in 2011, the budget was actually $130 billion, and it was under Governor Cuomo, and we actually filled a $10 billion budget deficit from the prior administration. So we have gone into the crazy world with what we spend, because remember, all that money that gets spent, we have to raise taxes. So we're right up there among the highest tax states in the country, and we have the highest Medicaid costs. We probably have, we're going to be approaching or probably equaling California with fraud, abuse, and waste, because there's a lack of management and oversight on the state side. And they just are happy with just continuing to take that federal money and fill those gaps. We're trying to find places where we can do that. I have a bill that actually makes sure that TANF, that's the temporary assistance to needy families, goes only to TANF and not goes to filling budget gaps. There's a lot of ways that we can try to move to try to combat some of this fraud that is coming across these federal programs that get into the state, whether it's Medicaid, SNAP, student aid, all these government contracts. We're really working on that. Vice President Vance is heading up this White House task force to eliminate that. So there's a lot going on. We're trying to get to these things. We're trying to bring the tax burden down. We're trying to, reduce our deficit. These are things we have to do, or we're going to be in unsustainable debt like some of these other countries in the past that have collapsed. And I think a few of who those were.
This Medicaid number is way out of whack. We talked about it one time between Florida and New York. Florida is 24 million people, and it's $25 million. What is it, Medicaid, right? Am I correct there?
Right.
In New York State has 19 million people, 19 and a half, and it's 125 billion. I mean, I can understand 10% more, 20% more. I can understand double, but 5 times?
Yeah, this is a program that was created to help the people who are truly needy, whether they're people that have fallen on hard times, people with special needs, senior citizens, others who can't provide for themselves, and we have turned this into a cottage industry. Everybody, just about everyone, finds a way to get into Medicaid. There's another issue on this too that's not just Medicaid, but there's also, I want to mention quickly the SNAP program, because I've been working with a lot of my counties across upstate New York, and how SNAP dollars work is there's an error rate that is applied to different states. Well, some states apply that error rate on a county by county basis. So some counties do better than others. So they should be credited for that. But New York State has a very high error rate, among the highest in the country. They were at 16%. And all we've asked is that you reduce your error rate. But when I'm talking to my upstate counties, they're like, we don't have a 16% error rate, but we're getting applied that same standard that places like New York City or places like Buffalo and Erie County get applied. We want a fairer allocation of that. Say our error rate's only 1%. Well, we shouldn't be penalized with a higher error rate, which minimizes our ability to get SNAP to our truly needy people. So I know that's sort of an upstate downstate thing, but at the same time, why do we have this high error rate? The state should be working on oversight to eliminate that. That's among the many things we're working on, trying to find legislation, working with Dr. Oz and governors to try to figure out how we get around this Medicaid and SNAP issues, making sure, again, like I talked about with TANF, that the people who really need this money are getting it, and it's not being diverted into, slush funds that the governor and other agencies are using just to fill their gaps, for these programs that have no accountability. I mean, you remember the old days when we were in the state legislature, they used to go and say, where's all this money going? And they'd find, they'd go to the address and they'd open the door and it was a broom closet. We want to make sure that's not happening. But we know it's got to be happening because the money is just not explainable when you look at New York State and its expenditures compared to other states.
We don't want fraud where people are just stealing the money. We don't want fraud where people are sending the money to Timbuktu or Africa or whatever. I hope the American people, that they get the pulse of what's going on and do the right thing for America.
Yeah, exactly. And John, here's the issue. We, as common sense Republicans and their common sense Democrats, we're trying to make sure that those people get the funds, that the taxpayer money is being spent on people that we care about and things that are important, not being taken advantage of. But the minute you go to try to correct that problem, the Democrats say you don't care about poor people, you don't care about needy people, you don't care about veterans. Not true. We want to make sure those people are taken care of and not scam the taxpayers, because every time you say government money, that's the taxpayers. That's you and me. That's everyone that pays taxes, gets their, is getting billed. And they shouldn't. We should have accountability for where our tax money is being spent. It's good policy. It's common sense. And we also have to protect wealth for all Americans. Whether you have $50, $100, $1 million in the bank, we need to make sure we protect that. And people are trying to grow their assets. It's why President Trump is trying to make prosperity in our market so everyone can benefit, regardless of where your status is. But the Democrat left, the hard left, keeps driving us into this race, gender, class warfare, which is not what it should be about. We're supposed to be unified under for human rights and the opportunity for prosperity, for happiness. That's what our Constitution is about as we celebrate 250 years. That's where we need to go. We want everyone to be able to prosper and do it in their own way. And we shouldn't be envious of someone because they've been successful or they've worked hard to achieve something, and they may be hiring or providing opportunities for thousands of employees who, if you look at SpaceX, look at these people who have become super wealthy just because of the ingenuity and innovation of a genius like an Elon Musk. This is what it's all about to be American. Look at how all these, people are coming in for the World Cup in soccer and loving American ingenuity and uniqueness. I just get the biggest kick out of these foreign and European and other fans going to Buc-ee's, for example, and it's just really great, or barbecue places, and seeing what we do as Americans, to see Americans truly, innovative, thinking, fun. We're not how we're probably portrayed in the foreign press. It's a great country, and we have a lot of potential. We just have to kind of have, as you get, it all comes down to your thing there, John. It's common sense.
Yes. Claudia, Tenny, thank you so much for helping the American people, and let's catch up again real soon.
Thank you.
The Cats Roundtable.
And with us today is New Jersey State Senator Duncan O'Shanlan. And he's down from Monmouth County. And, Senator, what the heck is going on in New Jersey?
Happy to be here. New Jersey's great. It's still a wonderful state. Best place in the world to live. But it's racked with a number of issues that we have to deal with. The legislature is currently putting together the budget for this coming year, and it's turning out to be a bit of a mess, as it has been over these past 8-10 years or so. We're overspending by probably about $3 billion of a $60 billion budget, and our funding system for our schools is a mess. It's unfair. It's unsustainable. We got a lot of issues to deal with, but we're working on it. And I do have to say, in deference to New Jersey, the atmosphere is very different than many other places in the country, and D.C. being one of them. We actually get along. Democrats and Republicans. I'm a Republican, but we get along with our Democrat friends.
I am so happy to hear that, because in New York, they're at each other's throat.
They are, and that's a shame, because it doesn't help. I mean, we fight. We have really dramatic disagreements. New Jersey is, I don't hesitate to say, the job my friends on the other side of the aisle have done over the past 8 or 9 years has been a disaster. But we could still have policy discussions. We could still sit down and have civil discourse. So I will give New Jersey credit for that.
When people communicate with each other and they actually sit down, usually you come to conclusions.
We had tremendous opportunities over the past 8 years when Governor Murphy was running the place, and we squandered those opportunities. We had $22 billion in federal money that came in after COVID. We had plenty of breathing room. We could have redone our school funding formula, saved a lot of money, and made the system more fair. There was so much we could have gotten done, and it would have been relatively easy. Now it's going to be very difficult these next few years. We're lucky right now. The economy's behaving. Our underestimated the revenue we'd have coming in, so that's a help this year.
Now, you had two major companies. You had two major companies leave New Jersey. How does that affect your budget? I mean, Exxon has been in New Jersey for 140 years. Samsung, they left. Samsung announced they're leaving and going to Texas. How does that affect your budget? I mean, when the state Senate gets together and starts to talk amongst themselves, do you know what the numbers are?
Well, I mean, it does, ultimately. It doesn't. I mean, look, you don't have one company leaving instantly and having that have a dramatic impact on the budget. It's the accumulation of many companies leaving over time. You can have one taxpayer leave. We had one taxpayer who was making $1 billion a year relocate to Florida, where he saved the 11% he was paying on his $1 billion. That cost us $100 million, one taxpayer. That can happen, and does. But even more impactful are the hundreds and thousands of taxpayers who are leaving, who are making, still substantial money, just not $1 billion, so it's not as obvious. It's a real problem, and Democrats in New Jersey don't seem to understand that our policies have an impact on business decisions, on individuals' decisions, whether to stay here, leave here, and continue to pay taxes here. It really is stunning to me, their lack of understanding that there's a direct relationship between our policy decisions and business decisions and individual decisions about where to go, where to open business, where to expand. And we don't even know, the ones that leave we can document. We don't even know how many thousands of businesses might have come here had we had better policies in place, had we been projecting to them that we care about their bottom lines. We'll never know, but it's certainly thousands. And it's billions and billions of dollars in revenue and productivity and jobs that certainly are not here because of that.
New Jersey Senator Declan O'Shanlon, thank you so much for coming on this Sunday morning. Have a happy Father's Day, and we'll catch up with you again real soon.
You too. I look forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. Steve Cates, otherwise known as Dr. Sky. What's going on in inner space?
Well, good morning, John, and the listeners. Happy Father's Day, and also the beginning of summer. That occurred 4:24 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Gets set for a long and what might be very hot and wet summer for many.
And it's what corresponds with that date is the longest day, day of sunshine versus nighttime.
Absolutely, John. And these days out here are obviously some hours here that the sun is up, 14 hours and 30 minutes, making it the longest, as you said. But we're going to talk about inner space right now. And here's some interesting stories. Strange rumblings under Utah. Well, we hear about earthquakes, John, as we know, all over the world. But since 1979, there was a 3.8 on the Richter scale earthquake. And astronomers, geologists, and all are trying to figure out where and how is all this rumbling taking place, kind of on a regular basis. So here it is, 55 miles below the surface of the Earth, John, which is very deep for many earthquakes. It's somewhere in the Earth's mantle. So we look at the crust, then we go into the mantle, and then we go deeper into the outer core and the inner core. So really, nobody really understands what's happening, but it might be because of great deep tectonic plates. You know, these are the things that shift on the Earth, which truly do cause many of the earthquakes. But, John, in summary, it's unusual to have something so deep, and this is something that seismologists are studying. Nothing to worry about per se, but we're continuing to learn about the mysteries of the Earth.
Well, any speculation? What is it?
Not really. It could be that material. Remember, the inner part of the Earth is molten, so there could be, and there's pretty good accuracy in this guesstimate here, that material moving from the inner core may be forcing its way up, and that's magma, which is what the stuff you see when volcanoes explode. That stuff you don't want to get close to. So again, John, the Earth is a living creature, if you want to call it, or a living being. And as we always talk about, and we are in total harmony, you and I, over the course of all these extinctions, the Earth has this amazing ability to heal itself. So we'll have to continue to study more. And even geologists don't really know all that about the true mechanism of earthquakes.
The ocean. There were some stories about a strange cold spots in the ocean.
Yes,
how does a cold spot happen with everything around that is different temperature?
Nobody really understands. This is off Greenland. And if you look at these thermal maps of the Earth from satellites, thank God for satellite technology, we're seeing, as we reported just a moment ago, these bluish areas, which are obviously the opposite of red areas that would show up as heat signatures. So it may be due to something in the Earth, these different things like the jet stream. And off the Atlantic coast, we know that this powerful jet stream moves warm water up. So there's this cyclonic-type motion that the Earth is very much dependent on. Now, I don't want to go into climate change and say that's the causation, but it could very well be, and those that believe in the changes of the Earth, climate change, and things of that. But we don't really know, John, so I'm not going to jump to the conclusion that it's man-made. But there's something happening where there's something called the AMOC current, rather technical but simple. It's a current like the Gulf Stream that's moving and usually transport warm water up. But there's a distinct signature when you look on these satellite maps of these cold blobs that sit there. Something unusual, meaning simply what? One of the source problematic things is that the ocean currents are changing, and we're really not sure derivatives of what the real causation is.
Sunday morning, what else would you like to talk about?
Well, John, we have some interesting news. For those of you that are big fans of space, vehicles like the Hubble Space Telescope satellites and the James Webb Telescope, what could be better than that? Well, there's going to be a launch, John, on August the 30th. It's the Nancy Grace Roman Telescope. Now, who was Nancy Grace? She was one of the chief astronomers at NASA for so long, and she's actually referred to as the mother of Hubble because her persuasion and her work helped us generate something even more spectacular than in the 1970s, the Hubble Space Telescope. But here it is. This particular telescope, known as the Nancy Grace Roman Telescope, should be launched on a Falcon Heavy rocket on or about August 30th. Its purpose, John, is to do better astronomy. How can you do that? It also has to compete with the James Webb Telescope, but it will see in the infrared, searching for exoplanets and moving on to the mystery of what we know or we don't know about dark energy and dark matter, two of the most confusing things in quantum physics, John. And if we could figure it out, that's probably something to do with gravity, but this telescope will give us bigger eyes, better resolution, and we hope the launch goes well.
Hopefully we'll get down to the bottom of it. Some of those underwater vehicles that I've seen on the new investigative thing that the government is releasing, that they travel underwater as fast as 200-300 miles an hour, knots an hour. I don't know what it is, but how can you travel that fast underwater?
No idea, John. That's why I listen to the Dr. Sky Experience every Friday and Saturday, midnight to 2 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Hopefully we'll get the disclosure information that we want. But simply, John, we don't have that technology, at least not that I would believe, of doing submersibles that travel fast as maybe even aircraft in air. A great mystery, and that's what we talk about, the great mysteries.
Well, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
Have a great day.
The Cats Roundtable.
The New York City Partnership. It represents 300 of the largest companies in New York. And the CEO, Steve Phillip, is with us. And Steve, I mean, a lot of things happened this week. The Knicks parade, the Knicks winning. The real estate industry is ready to commit suicide. Fill us in on what you think that people should know.
I mean, let's start with the Knicks because that's the
easy one,
front and center conversation. I mean, people don't realize that, and I see it from where our office is located down in Battery Park, that people started showing up for the parade 1 a.m. before Thursday morning. So, you get a couple million people out. People are so excited. And, I think from a business standpoint, the most important thing is that you've seen huge economic activity as a result of each home game. I mean, we estimate close to $100 million in added economic activity just as a result of people going out, celebrating the Knicks, drinking, eating, being out and spending money. So that's all good stuff.
Understood. Now, let's go to the hard stuff. The real estate industry they don't know if they'll commit suicide or move to Florida. You know anything about that end?
I think there is very much the mixed bag here. If you talk to kind of the commercial landlords, they'll tell you that, leasing and rental office space is still strong. But the challenge is that the jobs market has shown a tremendous amount of softness in 2025 and early 2026. So, those two things, paint a picture that is fairly complicated. And I think the city can go one of two directions pretty quickly with regards to, the local economy.
Understood. So what are your thoughts? I mean, is there any room in Albany to make a compromise, or what is going on?
I think the most important thing is kind of as we get into the latter portion of this year that the city council starts to think about the fact with the mayor that, New York City is on a trajectory that we're less and less competitive every single day, that Dallas and Miami and Nashville are actively pushing strategies to take jobs away from here. And if, you continue to push, agenda items beyond taxes, I'm not only talking about taxes, bureaucracy and layers of reporting and more difficulty to run a business, all of that stuff layers on top of one another and, makes it pretty difficult to run a business in New York City.
Understood. Now, it's Sunday morning. People are doing a lot of thinking. What else do you want to tell the American people?
Look, I think there's a lot of things to celebrate this summer, though. We got the 250th anniversary. We've got amazing activity due to the World Cup. You got a lot of activity because, the celebrations of diversity of New York City. So there's a lot of good things going on. I think, though, that you still have a complicated latter portion of this year with regards to politics. So two things happening simultaneously, and I think that people should just be conscious, aware of it, but in the near term, just enjoy New York City because it's a very, very special place, and particularly at this moment in time.
Understood. Well, thank you so much for coming on this Sunday morning and bringing us up to date, and thank you so much.
Appreciate all you do, John. Thank you.
Thank you. It was only a 4-day week in the markets. And with us today is John Terrett, like every Sunday. John Terrett, you want to give us an update?
I know it was only 4 days, but boy, what a 4 days it turned out to be. Of course, if you went to Wall Street on Friday, you would have been among tourists only. Those people in those colorful jackets running around the exchange weren't there. They were either in the Hamptons or maybe Staten Island for the Juneteenth holiday, which, of course, Friday was. In the 4 days that they had to trade, though, the markets had much to contend with last week. Most of all, that memorandum of understanding signed between President Trump and the Iranian president. We are told in the Palace of Versailles in Paris. I think it was virtual in both cases, but that's where President Trump was at the time. Now, the meeting in Switzerland, of course, to sign that document in Lucerne was cancelled on Friday. Wall Street, I can tell you, took one look at the memorandum of understanding and moved on. Yes, they're happy that oil.
It was only canceled for a few hours because then they shook hands again and went forward.
Yeah, well, you'll be happy to hear that oil and gas, of course, began falling immediately, back below $4 a gallon on Thursday and Friday. So that is at least good news. But I think a lot of people on Wall Street are very skeptical that this is going to hold. And we saw what happened regarding Israel and Lebanon on Friday. Anyway, that's the Wall Street mood regarding the MOU. The bigger story for them last week, of course, was the Federal Reserve with that interest rate meeting, the first under Kevin Warsh. And I think that obviously the rate remained unchanged, and Wall Street expected that to be the case. So it's still 3.5% to 3.75%. I think the Street was a bit shocked at quite how bearish Kevin Warsh turned out to be. I think they've been looking for a little more dovish sort of comments. And when he started talking about the 9 out of 18 participants in the committee on Wednesday, basically putting a dot on the plot in favor of a rate rise before the end of the year, I think Wall Street was quite expecting that, and the market sold off very heavily on Wednesday. However, the good news is they soared again on Thursday, the last day of the shortened trading week. It was a very strong recovery. It was not at record levels, but you could see record territory. The Dow was at 51,564, the Nasdaq 26,517, and the S&P 500 nice clean 7,500 up 1%. The other big story of the week, of course, SpaceX doubling in value from the Friday before, the one just gone, although it was lower on Wednesday and Thursday. And in crypto world, the crypto bros are very angry that the state of Illinois is introducing a crypto tax on business. All crypto transactions done by a business will be taxed in Illinois starting on January the 1st next year. Now, the bros are unhappy about this. They plan to push back. I'm not entirely sure how they will actually do that. And so, John, in the week ahead, lots of inflation and growth data coming up, including PCE, the Fed's preferred measure of inflation. That's on Thursday. And a look at the third revision of first quarter GDP. All of that, then, in the week ahead, which is a full trading week. John.
Thank you for giving us an update, and we'll catch up with you again real soon.
Thanks, John. See you next Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us for the Cats Roundtable Local Edition, the #1 show on Sunday mornings in New York. Keep listening to us for the Cats Roundtable National Edition between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock. So we'll be back to you in a few minutes after the news.